everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to take a look at the Transformers Earthrise Deluxe class Allicon. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below. Is it a pickup or a pass? Now usually I would take a look at the figure's packaging, but unfortunately I don't currently have it in my possession. So we're just going to get straight into the figure's details. Here we have the Allicon in its robot mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very top with that head sculpt. There's some dark gray for the main helmet section with some red for the eyes, some turquoise blue for the main forehead section. There's some light gray for the spike, and some silver and purple for the main mouth guard or battle mask section. And if you're wondering about all the spikes and fin pieces maybe poking you or breaking, don't be. They're actually made kind of a pliable rubber plastic, so it should be pretty hard for it to actually break or poke you. As for the shoulders, I do like these like dark gray and light gray spike armor pieces there, looking really cool. We actually do have the alligator arms from the other mode on the forearms here, which really doesn't bother me. I actually do like all the mechanical detailing and the spike detailing, and again, these are made of kind of a pliable rubber plastic, and they're on a hinge, so you can really display them however you wish. As for the forearms themselves, mostly done in green with some purple for the biceps and the hands. As for the chest, I do like this entire kind of layer detailing done in light purple and gray and silver, and you can move this little flap out of the way to reveal some more detail at the waist and crotch, mostly done in purple and green. I do like these spike sections at the knees. I do like the really weird foot design with the two spikes sticking forward, and there's actually a really cool spike at the back forming the heel spur and actually kind of angles up, which I think is pretty cool. And I do like how the gunmetal gray goes all the way around to the back of the leg, which is really, really nice. And of course at the back we have this huge alligator tail, which there is actually kind of an interesting fact that you might have not known. So when this figure was first released, when you took it out of the packaging, actually the tail does come packaged separately. So if you want to, you can remove this and put it off to the side for display purposes. You know, if you want more of a clean looking figure, that's of course perfectly your option. But do keep in mind, if you do remove the alligator tail, it actually will remove the option of some additional accessory storage. So I personally do keep it on because it really doesn't bother me. I do like all the spikes and the gunmetal gray. I think that looks pretty cool. And again, there is accessory storage that I'll show in just a sec. As for the rest of the figure, of course, there is some waffling in the back of the arms, but that really doesn't bother me that much. This is kind of a small deluxe, and again, it's a deluxe. This is a look from several years ago, so it really doesn't bother me. Also, the back of the legs are actually really well filled in, no gaps, no waffling, nothing really sticking out. And I also do like how you can see part of the alligator head from the other mode with the teeth and the eye, kind of really just letting you know that there's another really cool mode coming soon. I actually do quite like that. So another really cool, fun thing about this is not really a specific figure. It's kind of a generic soldier. He's kind of a quintessence Allicon soldier. You know, he's not like a specific character like Optimus and Megatron. So you could get like 6 of these and make like a huge quintessence Allicon army for your quintessence judge, which I think is so cool. I was actually really tempted to do that one time when Earthrise was still happening. I might do that someday for my collection. I think that would be pretty cool. But as for articulation for a deluxe from several years ago, it's actually pretty good. So of course the arms can move out and in, forward and back. There is bicep rotation. There is an elbow bend. There is also wrist rotation, and again, these little other arm pieces you can actually position however you wish, really just up to you. As for the head, of course, you can look up and down and side to side. If you do move this little skirt piece out of the way just to get some more clearance, the legs can kick forward and back, and of course for that huge alligator tail, it really does not get in the way. They can also kick out to the side. There is rotation at the top of the leg. There is a knee bend to a pretty much 90 degree, and there is a standard ankle pivot, which I'm actually really glad how they put in that extra plastic to fill in that gap, because if it wasn't there, there'd be a huge gap, and that never looks good. There's also a waist rotation, which is really good to see again. This somewhat does block it with the alligator tail, but you can just kind of move that out of the way just to get some extra clearance. But again, for Deluxe from several years ago in the Earthrise line, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, still pretty good. And as for the tolerances, for having this figure for so long, he has actually some really, really tight joints, which is really good to see. He's definitely held up over time. As for his accessories, he does come with 2, the first being the small little blade, which I typically do store on the back that I'll show in just a sec, but it's kind of a little knife sort of dagger, which you can plug into his hand, you know, the same peg and port system, which I think looks pretty cool. It probably could have used some paint apps, but it actually does form the tail, so it's kind of understandable why they didn't do some crazy colors for it. But this actually can store in the back. So there's this entire, you know, slot section here. There is this peg, and there is a port on the inside, so you're just supposed to slide this into place, and this actually does form the tail. It's a bit hard to align sometimes. Just plug it in, And there we go. So you can actually store it back here or put it in his hand. I typically do put it on the back because it's not my favorite accessory. The final accessory is actually this simple little spear. And I actually really do like this because, again, he's just kind of a basic generic soldier. He's not like a Megatron, you know, with his classic fusion cannon. He's just like a foot soldier. And I think the spear actually really works. This can store in two different ways, like the daggers. You can actually go back here and there is tabs there and there. So you can put it on either side. There is a slot right there, and that can just tab into place like that. I typically put it in his hands, but again, a really nice option that I'm glad they included. And if you want to see what it's like from the front view, it's actually pretty well hidden. You can barely even tell it's back there, unless of course if you wanted to see a bit of a glimpse of it, that's really up to you. Some people like the accessories pretty hidden, but you can put this in his hand like that. And I have actually been able to have him dual wield it. It's pretty hard. You kind of have to, you know, untransform him a bit, mess up a few things, but it somewhat does work. But there is a spear in his hand. I think that looks the best that way. But again, you can store on the back. But that's pretty much it for accessories and articulation and details. Let's now get down to a few quick comparisons. So here he is actually with a mold mate, that being the Bailiff. This figure came with the Quintesson Pit of Judgment. It was a PulseCon exclusive. It was actually our first Transformers PulseCon exclusive. So the similarities, the legs are pretty much the exact same thing all around that I know of. Another similarity is actually the forearms and the hands. I'm pretty sure they are the exact same thing, of course, except for paint. Differences. The accessories, as you can see, he has pretty much just like a plain spear. He has this huge, you know, scythe mace ball thing. I never really understood what that accessory was. Another difference is the head sculpt, as you can see. And another difference is the shoulders. He actually has a ton of more spikes and much more detail on this figure. And the color scheme, of course, is way different. Which one do I prefer? I think I probably prefer the Allicon. I just like him. He's a bit more simple. That's just my opinion anyway. Nothing against the Bailiff. I just kind of like the classic, you know, G1 Quintesson green and gray colors. They're actually supposed to be making another Quintesson Allicon soldier in that Trooper Builder multi-pack, a part of the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line. That one's going to be kind of a merge of these two figures. Like, it'll come with pretty much this mold or this version of the figure, but it'll actually come with an alternate head sculpt of this figure here. And I think it's going to come with this accessory, not the spear. So it's a bit of a merge of those two versions, which is actually kind of cool because this was exclusive, you know, so now you have a chance to get that exclusive head sculpt. And it's actually in the more, you know, Quintesson accurate colors. A lot of people had a problem with the sort of brown gray color. They really didn't like it. They were hoping for more of the green gray color. So I think this time around it'll be a bit more accurate, which is cool to see. And if you do want to see a view from the back, again, they both come with that small little dagger that forms the tail, and everything back here looks pretty similar. But please do let me know in the comment section down below of the two versions that are released so far. Of course, there is that third one, but we really don't have that in hand yet. Which one do you prefer? And now for another Quintesson comparison, of course, he's a soldier, so he has to have him next to his judge, his master, I guess you could say. Here's the Quintesson Judge. This is the release from the Quintesson Pit of Judgment, that exclusive pack. I know there was a solo separate release. I actually never got that one. Maybe I'll get it someday. But I think they look pretty cool side by side. So you could get, you know, like two and have them like guarding the judge. I think that'd be pretty cool. And I think that'd be really good for display. And now for one final comparison. Here he is with the Deluxe, that being the Siege Barricade. And size-wise, he is kind of on the smaller scale of Deluxes. You know, he's not like Cliff Jumper size. That one's a really small figure. He's a bit short and squat, but still a really good Deluxe class figure that I highly recommend. And that is pretty much it for this mode. So let's now get down to transformation. So what we're going to do is remove the spear. You can leave the spike or dagger in because it does form the tail. So what you want to do is actually tab the forearms into place. So there is a tab on the inside of the arm and there is a slot on the body. And that's just going to tab into place like that. Just line that up. There we go. Then you're going to rotate the hand using that swivel, and then you can do the same thing on the other side. Just tab the form into place. Of course, get that hand, rotate it, and then you can actually get the alligator arms, rotate these back, or of course to the front of the alligator. And then what you're going to do is actually flip up this entire skirt piece right here. Then you can go to the back section. You can lift up the entire alligator tail, and this is on a swivel, so you're going to rotate this entire section back. Then you're going to bring the alligator head up, and since you're going to do that, you can actually push this head in. You actually do have to wait to move the alligator head up. It's actually the head is actually locked into place until you move it out. So it's sort of a specific order of doing things. And then what you can actually do is rotate the waist all the way around. There is actually some tabs, as you can see, on the alligator tail, and there is some slots on the chest from the robot mode, and you can tab that into place like that. So just make sure that's nice and secure. And then what you can also do is actually fold in that skirt piece as well, and just make sure everything is nice and secure. You can then, put the legs in a bit of a more, bend over pose. You can actually have them straight like the legs before. I actually kind of prefer him sort of squatting. Looks a bit more animal-like, And there we have the Allicon in his alligator mode. Let's take a look at the details. Here we have the Allicon in his alligator alt mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very top with that alligator head. There's some really nice red for the eyes, some green for the bottom jaw, and I do like the kind of dirty yellow color they use for the teeth. And there's a bit of red paint on the inside of the mouth, probably to resemble the tongue. There's actually some really nice turquoise blue and purple on the top of the head there, with some dark gray as well. And overall, really menacing, scary looking head. And the mouth can open and close in case you're wondering, so you can chomp and eat some Transformers. I do like the little, alligator hands and arms, but I think they're a bit small, proportion-wise. Seem a bit weird to the rest of the figure, but looking pretty cool in that dark gray color with the spikes and little claws there. They're kind of made of that pliable rubber plastic, so they really can't open or close. Would have been nice if it was like solid plastic and a bit bigger. Would have looked better. As for the legs, they're pretty much the exact same details we saw in the robot mode. There's really nothing changed, so kind of just quickly going over them. I do like all the spikes, for the feet and the knees, and I do like that gunmetal gray. There's actually some mech ports for weapon storage on the side if you want to, and we do have the huge alligator tail on the back. Really, my only complaint with this figure is you can probably already see it. It's actually the hands of the fist. It's kind of the same situation, with the Legacy Evolution Tarn, with his tank, his hands kind of stick out the back. It's pretty much the same situation with this figure. The hands kind of just jut out the back. So it would have been nice if they could have, folded or collapsed in. Maybe they could have been like stored inside the tail or something, because they do look a bit weird back here. But I do love the tail with all the gunmetal gray, the spikes, overall looking really cool. And we do have the little dagger that does form the tail. And yeah, just overall really cool figure. As for articulation, the legs, the articulation I did show earlier, so that pretty much all stays the same. The little dino arms, of course, are on a hinge, so they can move up and down, and the mouth can open and close to a very, very big degree, so that's really cool to see. As for accessory storage, that small dagger is already on there, but the small little spear can be put in his hand if you want to, and that same tab and slot, where you can store it on the back, that is also a feature still present in this mode, but I actually kind of prefer to put it in his hand. I think it looks a bit silly, but also cool at the same time. But I'm just going to take that off and put it off to the side. So now for some comparisons, here he is with the bailiff in his alligator, shark mode. Kind of not really sure what to call it, but they look really cool side by side. So mold-wise, again, overall pretty similar, really just that kind of shoulder region, and the top of the head is a bit different in molding as well. But most of it is pretty much the same thing, really just kind of down to personal preference of the deco that you like. I still kind of prefer the more classic look. That's just my opinion anyway. But they look really cool side by side, and again, you could definitely army build this. You could get a ton of these figures and have like a huge army of alligator Transformers if you wanted to. I think that'd be pretty crazy. But now for one more comparison, here he is with the Sharkticon. This is the release from that, Pit of Judgment release, that exclusive one, the PulseCon exclusive. And two, shark type figures looking pretty cool side by side. And that is pretty much it for comparisons. So let's now get down to reverse transformation. What you want to do is actually hinge the little alligator arms back. You can actually close the mouth just like that. Then what you want to do is straighten out the legs and just make sure they're kind of level like that. Then you can untab the alligator tail and just use that swivel, rotate this all the way around. And then what you can do is actually flip out the little skirt piece like that, rotate the waist, flip this down, and this entire section here will collapse against the back like that. And then what we can do is just kind of plant them on the ground. You can untab the forearms from the body. There is that tab and slot that I showed earlier. You can then rotate at the wrist, just straighten out the arm. Do the same thing on the other side, just untab that, rotate at the wrist. And let me just quickly straighten him up. And there we have the reverse transformation. Let's now get down to the final thoughts. Now for the final thoughts for the Transformers Earthrise Deluxe Class Allicon. Starting in the alligator mode, I do like the dirty yellow for the teeth and the red for the eyes and the inside of the mouth, probably of course to resemble a tongue. I do like all the spikes across pretty much the entire figure. There's a ton on the back where the tail is concerned. It would have been nice if there was some articulation for the tail, but that's really more of a want rather than a complaint, because it really doesn't bother me. I do have a complaint, probably mostly to where this mode is concerned, really none where the robot mode is concerned. Specifically this area back here where the hands are, those are actually the robot mode hands. It's kind of like the situation with Legacy Evolution Tarn and his tank mode. He's overall an outstanding figure, but unfortunately his hands are kind of open and obvious and exposed in that tank mode, so it's a bit like that where they just kind of jut out the back. So it would have been nice if there was like a panel to cover them up, or maybe he could they could have stored the arms or the hands inside the tail. That would have been another really good idea. Another complaint of mine is the little alligator hands or arms. They're a bit small in proportion to the rest of the figure. You know, there's a huge alligator head, the huge tail and legs. They're a bit small, so it would have been nice if they were bigger. I kind of understand why they did it, because they do store on the outside of the robot mode arms, so they can't have, you know, huge alligator arms and then, you know, the small little robot mode arms, so that would look a bit odd. So I can somewhat cut some slack in that area of the figure. But as for articulation for the alligator mode, overall pretty good. You know, there's some areas that pretty much stay the same from the robot, like the legs in this mode are the exact same articulation because they do also form or are the robot mode legs in the other modes, so they no change there. You know, there's a little bit of articulation in the little alligator you know, arms, and the mouth can open and close, so we can, you know, be chomping and ripping apart some Autobots and Decepticons, which is really nice. As for his accessories, I actually kind of like the older style, you know, just simple spear and sword, because, you know, we're so used to some crazy shields, some crazy guns, you know, machine guns and cannons and other figures these days. So it's actually kind of nice just to see a simple classic spear. You know, this figure was, the main appearance of it was in the 1986 film and in the G1 series, so it's more of an older design, more of a simple design. You know, we really don't see this Allicon character that much. He's never been in a modern TV show or a movie, so it's definitely more of an older style design and figure. So I'm actually really glad how they kept the spear, because it definitely helps keep that older, you know, classic design of the Transformers, which is really nice. So the spear can store in his hand, as you can see. It can also store in the back with the tail, and the dagger can do the same. You can put it in his hand, or of course you can actually attach it to its tail, because it does form a portion of that tail. As for transformation, it's actually really simple. Probably one of the most fun, simple transformations. That might come as, you know, a disappointment to some people, because I know some people want a complex transformation of, you know, 50, 40 plus steps all the time, but it is a deluxe class figure. I think it's okay to have a few simple ones now and then, because if you don't want to, you know, tackle some crazy one like, you know, Armada, Optimus Prime from the Legacy Evolution line, you just want a simple, you know, 12 to 15 step one. This is a really good figure just to kind of fiddle around with, which is really nice. As for his robot mode, I really don't have any complaints. Some people have complained in the past about the rubberized piece. It's mostly really due to safety, because they don't want people, you know, poking their finger, or they don't want, like, you know, it hurting. They don't want it snapping, you know, because if they use solid plastic for those small little spikes, they could accidentally snap and break at the tip. So there's several, you know, good or decent reasons why it's understandable. If you have a complaint about the rubberized pieces, it also is a valid complaint, but there is a valid reason why it's rubber. Really, it doesn't bother me either way. I think it's fine, because I'm glad they don't break. I really don't want to have to worry, you know, every time I'm picking up this figure about the small little spikes that could snap and break, you know, and crack. So I'm okay that the rubber. I think it's more the safe route. But the robot mode itself looks super cool. I do love the huge tail in the back. You can actually remove the tail if you want to. I mentioned this earlier. It actually did come packaged with the tail separately. You're supposed to attach it on. So if you want more of the clean look with the tail off, you can technically remove it. But do keep in mind, if you do remove it, you do lose the storage of the accessories on the back. So that might bother some people. That might not. I don't know. I don't really know if you would consider that parts forming or not. I'm not really sure. I've never really cared about parts forming. But as for the rest of the figure, just tons of really cool armor pieces. He's a bit of a short, you know, squat deluxe. He's not, you know, like Earthrise Cliff Jumper small or Netflix Bumblebee small. He's just on the smaller hand of deluxes. I did do a comparison with the Siege Barricade. He is shorter than him. He's more of a short, you know, squat one, which that's kind of how they appeared in the film and in the TV series. They were a bit kind of a small little warrior army figure, which was kind of cool in a way. But I do love all the armor, you know, gunmetal gray, spikes, just an overall really interesting design. And again, I do hope maybe they do some more versions or other releases of this design soon. Like, I know we are getting another use of this mold in that Trooper Builder multi-pack, but maybe they could do a like Legacy Evolution Allicon, or honestly what they could do, because we do have the Studio Series 86 line, there was the Quintesson Judge and these Allicons in that film. Maybe they could re-release the Earthrise one, or maybe they could do a brand new mold. I think that'd be pretty cool to see. And actually it'd be really nice if they re-released the Bailiff, because, you know, the Bailiff was an exclusive to PulseCon, so very few people could have actually gotten it. So maybe they could re-release the Bailiff in the 86 line. I think that'd be really nice. But just overall, an outstanding figure. Hopefully I'm not rambling on too much. Probably, truth be told, probably one of my favorite deluxes of Earthrise, and probably one of my favorite deluxes, period. So I do highly recommend the figure. It's not perfect, but still a really fun release. I do hope you enjoyed this throwback review. I know I've been doing a lot of throwback reviews recently of older figures, but I will, trust me, I will have a lot. And when I say a lot, I will have a lot of Legacy Evolution reviews coming soon, from Wave 3 to Titan classes to exclusives. They're all coming soon. Make sure you stay tuned for that. I do hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.